What's up, Swing Trader Snacks here. We're going to jump in and do our watch list for Tuesday, September 7th. Let's take a quick look here at market breadth, and we've got yet another day higher. So that would be since the most recent pullback, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days closing higher. I guess this one wasn't a close higher, but anyway, we're pretty much 9 days higher, guys. So I feel that we may be getting to the point where a pullback would be maybe even expected, right? But look, at the end of the day, we are still stronger. We've got the RSP breaking out of range. I'd like to see a continuation on that, but a pullback in, retest of the 9, showing strength, and then getting back out of the range, pushing higher would still be healthy price action, and Qs also just pushing higher. And we've got small caps still holding that breakout level. I would also like to see this start to push higher and follow along with the look and structure of the market. But look, this is a breakout on small caps, and it's a very good look for any sort of argument of a continued or sustained move. We want full participation. It seems that we do have it. And we've got crypto still looking pretty decent as well. Good, really. I mean, we're at all-time highs, guys. Like, this is what we want. This is what we want to see. I got to stay in risk profile B minus. Again, we're still in this government shutdown, still in a headline sensitive environment. And there's some Fed speakers talking, I believe starting today. Powell speaks Thursday. There's some jobs reports coming out this week. I know last week the reports weren't released due to the government shutdown. I've not seen the update yet on whether or not the jobs numbers, which would likely be skewed due to all of the government shutdown, right? I'm pretty sure there's millions of people furloughed currently, right? So, we might get a little bit of volatility here. I do expect, as I've been mentioning, a bit of a shakeout before year-end move. I would at least like to see that. But look, guys, we are strong and willing to position. I'm staying relatively light, right? I think I've only got about 20% exposure right now. I never go over 50 or 60%. I use options for leverage, and in that way, I do not have to ever expose all of my capital. It just helps me sleep at night, right? And then should there ever be any major market correction, I've got dry powder sitting there ready to scoop up longer term ideas. But look, we haven't had that in quite a while. Guys, we're over 200%, 207% as of close yesterday. When I woke up this morning, I'm in Thailand, so I woke up this morning, checked the accounts, and 207% on the year. So, as I've been saying for quite a while now, that we would get over 200%, and we have. Guys, I'm excited. I'm happy. We're going to jump into this list here in just a second. It's a pretty small one. But those of you that do not know, if it's your first time here, I trade the leaders in a trend backed by growing fundamentals, and I have 6 models, but 5 of the 6 are continuation patterns on those leaders. And as long as we can identify that we are in a trend in the market, then we pull the trigger. All right. And typically what I like to look for is a retracement, a reaction at around our level, and a remount of the short term. And I really like when we get that on the indices, right? So when we start to get a little bit stretched in the indices and we get a pullback, reaction at around the level, and a remount of that short term on the indices, right, on the market, then it really fires off our focus list. Link for my focus list of leaders is in the description. But guys, let's jump in. RBLX is one that I do like. This is a possible gap down reversal play, right? It was on a news event that we gapped down. I don't remember exactly what it was. Something related to users. It was a random news event, right, that had us gap down. And what I like about when this happens is what we're looking for is the leaders in the market to go onto sale, and we look for positioning, right? And that can be in the form of a triple R setup, a gap down reversal, a shake and go, whatever it may be. There's different ways of looking for this positioning. But what it is we're looking for a retracement, reaction at around the level, and a remount of the short term. And that suggests that when this leader that we know that these institutions have to be positioning into, when they go on to sale, do they step in and buy it up without letting it break structure? So without letting it make a lower low, right? And do they buy it up and get it back on to trend? Remount in the short term, the 9 EMA is a pretty good indicator of that. And that is our trigger for triple R. But RBLX here is a gap down. And if we see a breach of the gap down high, okay, and then also it sort of aligns with the 50 there, look, it's a good look, okay? This thing is going on sale. They're holding it up. It hasn't rolled over. If it does not and it breaches this gap down high, it might suggest that they looked at this as a positioning opportunity and want to look to get it back onto trend. And this is also an IPO cycle, right? So quite a lot to like here on Roblox. So the trigger would be right around 128.20 for gap down reversal. And then we've got CVNA is a tight one, but it is retracing back into our level, and it's at that all-time high level, which is what this green line is. So I like that it's coiling up. It suggests that maybe when they do let it go, that this thing could have some legs. But look, guys, we pull back to the 50. If we hold it and get back over prior high and over the 9, I think it's worth a swing. We got CRDO. I like this thing clearing range. So here's an example of retracement, reaction at around our level, remount, and you set a 2-to-1. I use options for leverage. So these little moves where they're just 5-10% in the underlying stock, and options, these are 60 to 200% moves depending on the contract you select, right? Big moves, okay? Small moves being big moves by strategically using options. And here's another one, retracement, reaction at around our level, remount. And so look, we're looking for another one right here. It's been a little bit jumpy in the area, so at this point I would like to see it clear range, okay? If we get through that range, I think you got to pull the trigger on this with a stop below, swing low. Hey traders, if you're struggling to find consistent profitability, then you need a coach or a mentor. The markets are just far too brutal of a teacher. I'm up over 170% on the year and on track to do well over 200, so triple the portfolio this year, 2025. So if you want to stop spinning tires and you're looking for someone to lean over your shoulder and teach you a model that works, but more importantly than making money, I'm going to teach you how to keep it and compound it through proper risk management. I'd love to have you join me. I'm going to give you an edge you can leverage for the rest of your life. See you there. Net is another one. This is a frequent trader for us, and it's very clear here. Retracement, reaction around our level, remount. Had another one here, retracement, reaction at around our level, remount. We played this one, and we're getting it again, okay? Right around, again, that all-time high level, sort of like Carvana, and we're bunching up, sort of flagging out at all-time highs. I think through this range here would be a nice trigger for me here on NET. HWM is a hot sector, aerospace, defense sector, all of that stuff is kind of hot right now. You can see a recent triple R trigger on this guy right here, back over to 50, and set a 2-to-1 on these things. They work out more often than not. In the leaders aligned with market breadth, this stuff hits well over 70%. I would, many times over 80%. It fluctuates, right? But over 70% on triple R. All of my models hit over 50% at a minimum of 2R. And we've got Dave is another one. I'd like to see the finance sector as a whole heat up a little bit, but this is holding up and it's not breaking structure. So back over the 50, I do like Dave. And for reference, I mean this here. I'd like to see the finance sector break out of this range, and that would let things like Dave or Pay is another one that I really do like. Really like the weekly on this guy. We're putting in a long-term IPO cycle with a cup and handle loading up right below all-time highs, and we're getting a trigger here for triple R on the weekly and the daily, plus those other things that I mentioned. This has got a lot going on right here where I would actually like to target a bigger move, and you could anticipate the breakout on a triple R trigger entry down here and get a quarter size and then let it break out, pull back, retest that high level, hold, show strength at it, and then I would go load up to full size on a scenario like that. MSTR is one that, as long as you believe in the crypto space, look, this is remounting the major moving averages. This has got to be looked at and respected in doing so, okay? And then we've got Reddit, another one that had a recent reaction to negative news that knocked it down. I think that over the 50, it would invalidate that reaction to that news, right? And you could argue that it was looked at as an opportunity at positioning into a clear leader, right? So if they get this thing back above the 50, I think you should roll with them. And that's it, actually. Very short list today. Most of the things you should already be in. I've got a few positions on myself. Things have been triggering and firing off here for weeks, right? So we're not going to force anything, and it's getting to the point, I will have to say that, I'm going to start getting more and more cautious, waiting for the next market pullback. All right, we do not fear these things, okay? We wait for them and we look at them as opportunities for the market and our stocks, the leaders, to go on to discount, okay? And then when the market stabilize off of the pullback, the correction, the retracement, whatever you would like to call it, and we remount short-term trend in the market, so do all of our leaders, and we pull the trigger every single time that happens when we are in a clear trend, which, if anyone wants to know, how often does that happen? Usually. All right. The market is usually in trend, and it's usually an uptrend, but we can also play all of this to the downside should we need to. Don't worry. As I said, all we need to do is identify, are we in a trend? And if we are, then we have 5 continuation models that we can execute on that trend. All right, guys, stay safe, manage your risk. Let's go make some money. See you soon.